up this weekend, I only have two questions about this fight. Can Sean Woodson outlast Fight Ready's Luis Saldana, or can Luis Saldana go into the well like the gym's own JSP Jonathan Pierce and eke out a win over Sean Woodson? I mean, you look at this matchup, we have Sean Woodson, a guy who has one pro boxing fight. I'll show it. I mean, he fought at 215 pounds. The viewers get to see what he looked like. Matt, Sean Woodson, I mean, looking out for the crew out
That doesn't even look like the same man.
They don't even look the same, but it's crazy to see that this guy, I mean, obviously it's been well documented. He had a car accident when he was a young man. It forced him to go from boxing over to MMA. And I mean, Matt, he's only lost one fight. And in that fight, he was winning it until Julian Erosa went snap down city. I'm snapping this one down to the mat, and I'm going to get him caught in a Darce choke. And Woodson was out of that one. But for Woodson in the UFC, he has looked very good. Of course, the only thing that I can say is he's just not very active. I mean, that's my one knock. He gets the win on Contender Series against Terrence McKinney 3 years ago. McKinney was winning that fight with the wrestling exchanges until, as he's getting up, got a little bit lazy. Flying knee by Woodson, finishes him in that win.
Wild. A
win over Kyle Bochniak in a hometown fight for Bochniak. Great motion, great volume out of Woodson in that one. Gets a win over Yusuf Zalal by split decision and beat Colin Anglin about 6 months ago. Colin Anglin has not looked good outside of the UFC. I thought he was going to be good with his wrestling. Anglin tried to strike with Woodson.
Bad idea.
And he was not able to get it done. But for Woodson, you see exactly what the base is. I mean, he's St. Louis's own. He really does mix in that boxing very well. He's probably one of the better pure boxers you're going to find in MMA. You see him always moving his feet, always moving his hands. He's not really a guy that utilizes a lot of peekaboo, but there always is moving pieces to his game. The nickname is the Sniper, and he throws such volume and puts power at the end of his shots that it's just so hard for a lot of guys to figure him out. And very much like a lot of pure kickboxers that come into MMA, where you're labeled as a pure boxer and you're so big and long and lanky, a lot of guys are going to go and take you down. And he's had good takedown defense throughout his overall career. So Woodson comes into this one against a guy who is obviously much more well-rounded than Luis Saldana. And the only thing I have to say about Saldana, you look at this guy, I mean, at one point in his career, he was 10-6 back in 2017. Since then, he's 6-1. You look at the one loss that he has in the UFC against Austin Lingo, lose the decision, really slows down in the third round, gets dropped. You look at it in the debut against Jordan Griffin. That was one of the most controversial fights going. MMA decisions, 2 had it 29-28 Saldana, 16 had it 29-28 for Jordan Griffin. And you look at his last fight against Bruno Souza, the same thing can be said because 6 had it 29-28 Saldana, 7 had it 29-28 Bruno Souza. The problem for Luis Saldana is trying to conserve his gas tank and when to decide to conserve his gas tank, because he can burn pretty damn hot early on, but then he's forced to pay for it as the fight goes on. I thought he had a pretty good third round against Bruno Souza. Round 1, round 2, they could have both gone Souza's way. So for Saldana, it's just trying to figure it out because he definitely is a more complete martial artist in this matchup here.
And I think he's really going to have to rely on the leg kicks in this matchup because since he does have by far the worst cardio in between these two, I think he's going to struggle later on in this fight. But if he does invest enough in those water in the bank techniques, to quote Teddy Atlas, I think it could sort of even that gap as this fight goes late. And for Saldana, he does have really nice kicks. He has a good front kick up the middle. He has good leg kicks, so I do expect that to be a weapon that he uses quite a bit in this matchup. I just don't know how Sean Woodson's going to deal with the overall activity of Luis Saldana, especially early. I think this is going to be an incredibly competitive and entertaining fight, if I'm being honest. Like, this probably could be a headline stealer on the prelims, just because Sean Woodson, when he does win, it's normally by a flashy, high-level strike. He is very heavy-handed, not just a heavy man, as you see in the picture to my left. So for Woodson, I do think he can have a lot of success on the feet, but you're right, his lack of volume is very concerning. He either tends to win by this highlight reel finish, or he'll win a pretty close fight that by the end of it, you're sort of worried if he is going to win the decision or not. And against a guy like Saldana, let's say Saldana can even put 9 minutes together where he looks
Hold on,
really
are you
good.
saying Sean Woodson doesn't throw a lot of volume?
No, he does, but he doesn't necessarily do it with power throughout the whole entire fight. That's my only concern.
Death by 1,000 cuts.
Oh, it's going to hit him. I'm sorry. If that was the point I was getting across, that's not what I'm trying to say. say at all. Woodson is going to hit you quite a few times. I'm just not sure how he's going to look after that leg's been kicked out. If Saldana can make this competitive early, because I think Saldana is going to look good early on, and I do think he is going to land some of his own power shots, because Woodson does have good footwork, but I'm almost worried that he might move a little bit too much early on, and if Saldana can throw in combinations, maybe he could have some success through that. But I think the overall boxing of Woodson is so crisp that he's going to be able to find a lot of openings in some of those in-betweens, because he is very long for this division. He's good in the clinch, and I do feel like some of the elbows, some of the knees, some of those mid-range weapons that you look for in a long-rangier guy like Sean Woodson are really going to be apparent as this fight continues.
The only thing about Woodson that scares me in this matchup is when distance is established, sometimes he'll rush forward like Dricus du Plessis and he'll throw a lot of shots at once, and he does that from orthodox. He'll switch stances a fair bit. When he's from southpaw, he's just looking to kind of keep his right hand out and land the left cross. When he goes over to orthodox, he's throwing a lot more in terms of 1-2s. And from Woodson, he throws kicks out there, but they're more to establish distance than anything. They're not really, they are prodding shots. They're not more to kind of cause damage like a Jose Aldo leg kick.
Or like a Tony Ferguson one.
When you look at this one, even in that third round against Arosa for Woodson, he was able to drop him, and then Arosa went, well, we're not playing boxing anymore. We're going to take this one down to the mat where he excels. Throw them together. Excels, yeah. Chuck in the house. Matt, when I do look at this fight, Woodson is a pretty darn big favorite. Open to -300, -315. Luis Saldana open +250. Still roughly there. So he is a pretty big underdog here. 2-1 in the UFC for him. 3-1 in the UFC for Sean Woodson, who was an underdog against Terrence McKinney. More than a 2-1 underdog in that matchup. We have a look at the Topology votes, Matt. Surprised us there to you. I would think these are going to be closer than the ones that I put out there. So I'm going to say over under 65% Woodson.
I'll say over.
Think it's going to be over? Oh my God.
I didn't think it'd be that far over.
790 votes, 95% Woodson, 73% by decision, 20% by knockout. For the 5% that have Saldana, 49% by decision, 23% by knockout. I think Luis Saldana has a good shot with his wrestling. I think he's quite active once he gets it to the mat. I don't love his top control. I hate his gas tank. But I think if Saldana can bring it together, he is the more complete fighter in this matchup. But I love the volume out of Woodson. The thing that I don't like out of Luis Saldana, and I haven't talked about it until now, I talked about it early on in the card. There's fighters that have that still brush saw kind of stance. Luis Saldana stands with his hands out and really low. But when he goes to throw, he doesn't throw from an awkward angle. He usually brings his hands up to then strike, and then he brings them back down low. When he has them low and he's backing up, he gets hit clean. He will duck and roll out of some of his shots, which is really cool to see. Even in the third round, he still keeps that cognizance that he can bob and weave out of shots. Sean Woodson does that like the best of them in this division. It's just that Sean Woodson, I love the boxing, and I like that fact that you got a guy with volume, and he can throw with some power, death by 1,000 paper cuts, against Luis Saldana, who keeps his hands low for the most part. I like Sean Woodson in the matchup. Don't love him at a -300, but for the sake of being fight night picks and making a pick, I'll pick Woodson here.
I think this is going to be an incredibly exciting fight. I really do, because I do think Saldana can make Sean Woodson pay in a few areas in this matchup. Because let's say Woodson does get reckless with some of his forward pressure. Saldana can go under, get the takedown, and I really do think Saldana can have some success on the feet. I definitely favor Sean Woodson on the feet in the striking, and that's why I'm going to pick Sean Woodson. But I don't think it's necessarily a wash for Saldana if this is at kickboxing or boxing range, because I do like his ability to put some shots together, and it's not like he has no power whatsoever. So if he is able to land early on Sean Woodson, again, maybe he can close that gap in the gas tanks.
I hate to say this because it seems like I'm kicking a guy when he's down, but this would have been the perfect dominant cruise fight, because you look at the underhooks from both guys in the clinch positions and exactly what they can do. You know we would have been excited about this one, but both of us going with the man out of St. Louis, Sean the Sniper Woodson, to get the win. Let us know down below in the comment section if you have Woodson, if you have Saldana, who you have for all of these fights, because we have a stacked card including a main event between welterweight champ Kamaru Usman looking to defend against Leon Edwards. It's a big time card. Keep it locked in with Fight Night Picks. We always say, let's get into it.